Now, when you start modeling and sculpting, you will have the need to be able to deform things a little bit more softly than selecting individual vertices or edges. So, for example, I have this model here, and if I go into vertex edit mode, and let's say I go and want to reshape his nose, if I select individual vertices or groups of vertices, you can see that, well, I'm getting this kind of harsh artifact because I'm not moving all of them at once. I want to move this one a lot and some of the other ones less. So this really brings up the need to have what's called soft selection, which allows you to do more sculptural effects. We can get to this through the Move, Rotate, or Scale tool simply by double-clicking on it. Another way to get to this is to just toggle this button here on or off, and that shows or hides the tool settings. Now, inside any tool that selects, you will have what's called a soft select. So if I scroll down, you'll see I have this tab here that says soft selection. Now, if I toggle this on, you can see how it all of a sudden falls off and allows me to select over a gradient. So now when I move that one vertex, it moves really the whole front of the face. Now I can fall this off by either volume or surface. Now the difference between this is volume is 3D space, so it's the exact distance from this vertex to any other vertex. Surface calculates the distance along the surface, and I tend to find surface works a little bit better for organic modeling. Now, once you have the type of fall off set, you can also dial up or down the fall off radius. So if I wanted just to affect the tip of this character's nose, I could do a smaller fall off radius, and then I can just pull those vertices out. Or if I want a little bit more, I can do that. Now, in addition to this, we have what's called a fall off curve. Now, this can be user defined. All you have to do is click on here and draw your own curve. But we also have curve presets. So by default, it's this preset here, which is a pretty fairly even fall off. We have one here that biases it towards the original vertex. We have a linear fall off. We have no fall off at all. And then we have other ones which give us all sorts of wacky fall offs. Now, I tend to stick to this one or this one because it gives the most organic effect. Now, in addition to this, we can also change viewport color. We can turn it on or off, or we can change the colors. By default, it's reds and yellows, but if for some reason you have a problem seeing those, you can change them to whatever color you want. Now, in addition to this, the Move tool, Rotate, Scale tool, they all have what are called symmetry settings. And this is a tab right below soft selection. And in fact, the two kind of complement each other. So let me go ahead and zoom out on this character here. And as you can see, as I hover over this character, it shows me exactly what my soft select is going to be, which is kind of nice. But let's say I wanted to reshape the ears of this character. Let's say I want to give him bigger ears. If I don't have symmetry, I would have to select one ear, model it, and then try and duplicate that exact same process on the other side. That's not very friendly. So if I want, I can turn on what's called symmetry. We have two types of symmetry. One is called world symmetry, and that basically reflects around the physical world. So if your object's centered to the world, that's just going to be pretty much the same as the next one, which is called object symmetry, which will reflect around the center of the object. So if I move the pivot left or right, that will affect this. And then center of the topology. And then that's something that Maya calculates as to what's the exact center of the topology that you have. And again, if you have a symmetrical object, it's pretty much going to be the same. Now we can also reflect along different axes. Now if I look at this model, you can see his left and right is oriented on X. And so we want this on X, but if we want, we can change it to Y. So for example, if I have something at the bottom, I can reflect to the top, or Z. So if I have something at the front, I can reflect it to the back. But in this case, we're doing left and right, so that's going to be X. So once I select this, you can see that now selecting one side of the ear affects the other. So now if I pull out his ear on this side, I can get a very nice symmetrical motion. And with soft select, I can basically sculpt one side and be confident that the other side will sculpt identically the same. Now, with symmetry, you also have a few other controls here. One is tolerance, and that's basically at what point does Maya consider something to be symmetrical? So if your model's not exactly right, you can dial it in a little bit more precisely here. We can also do what's called preserve seam, which actually affects NURBS objects more than polygonal objects, so we don't need to concern ourselves with that, and as well as the tolerance for those seams. So those are some of the basics of how to do soft select for sculpting objects in Maya. And as you can see, it's a very handy tool for organic modeling.